Hardcore Lies.
Hey guys, Rob and George here with you, aka VHS82, with week number 550, man. Halfway to that 600 mark. And with that being said, in terms of original reviews at Body Bags, we maybe not we might have just hit that special 3,000 mark in terms of the Body Bags archive that I've built into Letterboxd. We may have just hit that 3,000 mark as Glenn, aka BDG Reviews, has just did his uploaded for Monday. That being an original review will apparently mark number 3,000. Now, we have done a lot more reviews, but in terms of original reviews, right, not counting the copies of earlier reviewers, this is like 9 years now Body Bags is going on to. And so, you tend to review something that somebody might have reviewed 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And so, so that's a special day. Tomorrow it becomes official, although I've already updated Letterboxd, so it now officially says 3,000. And that is 9 years, 3,000 original reviews, 550 weeks. That's remarkable. And we've started something new where, because of our format has changed a little bit, going Monday through Friday. Well, unfortunately, Jason has stepped aside and to do other things. And so that puts us to 5. But you know what? I think we've turned something that could have been a downer into something good. And as a result, our weekends are now open, and we have begun a collaborative effort, beginning with me and Lonnie, who it's already uploaded, in which we spent about an hour and some talking about John Carpenter and our own personal top 5. But we just recorded another one, which will drop May 18th at 4 a.m. And where Glenn also now, us three, talking Lucio Fulci and our top 5, which I have to say was a phenomenal top 5 because they rarely imitated one another. And so it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun talking about it. So it's changing a little bit. The structure, and hopefully that'll be enough to carry us on further into some other interesting areas for Body Bags. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think Body Bags is going anywhere, at least yet too soon. So, and that's remarkable. To the very first handful of reviews 9 years ago to today, it's remarkable this is still going on. But anyways, I'm just spent about 3 minutes plugging this thing. Here we are, man. We're starting a whole new month. And so, I mean, segueing into a new month and new format. And so that's why you won't see Jason anymore. And James will be on Tuesdays. Of course, we all know Lonnie has moved to Fridays now, and our weekends are open. No one else has moved in terms of days. But I thought I'd do something. This month is very, very special to me. Well, second weekend is Kino, right? And so we've got Kino Lober / Redemption. Redemption happens to be under the Kino label if you go into Kino's site, right? And so you'll see, second weekend. But then at the end, Glenn's theme at the end of the month, Ghost Hunting Gone Bad. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to do from the French directors, the Deep House. So looking forward to that. But between now and there, we got 3 weeks. And I have recently discovered something absolutely phenomenal. You already know the title and you see that. But Quatermass Experiment, Quatermass 2, Quatermass in the Pit all month. And I am beginning at number 2 simply because Kino is our label second weekend. And so as a result, I got the Kino release of Quatermass Experiment. And so real quick, a little bit. Of course, this is directed by Val Guest, who did 3 phenomenal episodes for Space 1999. Season 2, which is not a great season, at least in comparison to season 1. But the 3 he did are standout episodes in season 2. Rules of Luton, the Abia Chrysalis, and Dorzak, or maybe it's the Dorzak. 3 standout episodes, and I revisited them this week. as well. He also did Valgus, The Abominable Snowman, and the original Casino Royale from '67. Now, Nigel Neal is really the heart. It is his writing that lays the foundation for the original BBC series, Quatermass, and also wrote the script for the movie The Witches in '66. But most importantly, uncredited for Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Tommy Lee Wallace, who gets credit for writing, directing, though says it was Nigel's script, most of which is the film you see. But unfortunately, as a result of Nigel sort of stepping back, I guess, as a result of not wanting to make any changes to the original script, in terms of working with John and Carpenter and Tommy Lee Wallace, he sort of faded back, and unfortunately, and Tommy would agree, he retains full credit, right? But really, it's Nigel's script, for which Halloween 3 Season of the Witch would not be what it is if it wasn't for him. So, Quatermass influences just 3 movies, man. I already named one of them, but Prince of Darkness. I'm so new to this, but I've watched all 3 movies. I've listened to some podcasts, actually, I found. And, but in the earlier days, my love for Prince of Darkness has grown much over these last couple years. And of course, when you watch that in the early, very long title credits, right, you ultimately finally get to that point where you see written by Martin Quatermass. Now, that's a pseudonym by John Carpenter, of course, and it just goes to show the impact. And I think John was, from what my understanding was, tired of seeing his name on anything or everything and everywhere. But it also gives away the influences. And if you've never seen the Quatermass Experiment or 2 or Quatermass in the Pit, you might completely have a newfound appreciation for things like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, or maybe if you just happen to be not that great of a fan of Prince of Darkness or Life Force, the Tobe Hooper film. Quatermass, its influence is far-reaching. In fact, I revisited Halloween 3 Season of the Witch last night. Compliments my Scream Factory set. And I was just absolutely just floored. I mean, and this is my suggested watch. I don't usually do it with body bags as much as I do with other things, but, which reminds me, I didn't have a suggested watch with Soft Light, the last X-Files episode that I just reviewed. Not sure if there is one really, but for this there is. I would say you watch Quatermass 2 in a double feature with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it is one of those remarkable moments where you can see so much of a newer film spring out of this idea. So what is this idea? We're already almost 9 minutes in, and my apologies. Really, basically, I'm not going to give, there's so much compact into this movie. It is really worthy of a podcast and not just a short 14, 15, 16-minute review. But Quatermass, our main character, the way I describe him, he's kind of like your modern-day Elon Musk, always pushing the boundaries of science. And this is more profound in the first film, I think, but in the second film, he gets embroiled in a massive conspiracy of unimaginable proportion. And then I think this is the first sequel that puts the 2 after the title, so Quatermass 2. And it's really, a lot of it revolves around, he has developed his incredible plans for a moon base, and he's trying to sell it off to the government, right? This is a British film, so we're in England, and it really an interesting look into post-war society, as this is 57, and you've got the earlier series, and an interesting look into England just post World War II, and so he he's not getting it sold off, and we have this interesting meteorite type phenomena that is happening. And he has a near crash in the very opening scene of the movie, where all of these things start to sort of crash in on one another, and he becomes very alerted to the idea that it takes a little while to get to the final idea or realization, but something is terribly amiss. And it begins with a near crash in the beginning. A guy and his girl are on a date, and they get caught in the meteor shower, and you don't know if one of these small meteors you find are rocks, but they are something much more deadly. He gets burned. The boy gets burned by one of them, and he's having a hard time driving the car, and nearly causes the accident with Quatermass. And but a little bit later on, you find that Quatermass and his buddy are trying to, follow up leads, and they pull off the side of this road, and they see some of this rubble of houses of this town that used to be, and is no longer. But as they get out of the car and approach the side of the road, all of the sudden, Quatermass just stands there in absolute disbelief as his eyes are looking at his moon base has been built where this town used to be, and it is under the control of the military, apparently. Well, we find out a military government that has been infected, taken over by this alien race, who are looking to colonize and ultimately probably take over the world. And so much of the film after that is a means or a matter of Quatermass and his buddies trying to get into this factory, seemingly looking moon base / factory, and going to London and dealing with government, the bureaucracy, right? Bureaucrats, and trying to find out exactly what is going on, and not getting much help from it. The more deeper into the film, you realize the conspiracy is much larger, much more real, has reached some very high levels of the government. And this is how, for a couple years, no one really knew this moon base had actually been built, because instead of us using it on the moon to colonize the moon, another alien race is using it to colonize Earth. And so some really fascinating ideas here, a lot of interesting ideas. There's Broadhead as a character who ultimately travels with Quatermass into the moon base, the factory, which is being presented as a food factory plant, food plant. It's something much darker, much more sinister. And there's this horrific scene where, and some of the things you don't just see, but you see the after effect of some of these things. And you got Broadhead, is it Broadhead? Anyways, forgive me. He has fallen in. There's these huge giant domes, right, that are apparently holding the processed food that is being made. It's not really. It's there for another totally more sinister reason. These domes are housing something much more insane. He falls into one, and when he is lost from the group, because they're sort of posing as an inspection group, when he comes out of the top of one of these domes, and literally covered in this black goo, screaming, that the food is burning him, and he's like, the steam's coming off of him, and it is just insane. It is such an insane moment, and there are a few moments like that are very ultra super creepy, and you can see where the conspiracy, the town that is adjacent to this moon base, who serves as the workforce to build this thing, are slowly but being taken over by these aliens. Ultimately, it leads into what I've heard on one podcast as a raid on Frankenstein's castle, where the town decides it's enough, and revolt. And so there's a lot of interesting, neat pieces here. And a sequel that follows its original and just like Aliens to Alien, just amps things up to a much more horrific degree. And the guy who plays Quatermass, Bryan Donlevy, I don't really know him from anything else other than these two movies, but he's freaking fantastic. Now, I get it now that anyone who is like very well versed in the original BBC series, which, by the way, I cannot seem to get my hands on, so if anyone can link me or point me in the direction of where I might be able to get the set, I would absolutely love to see it, because I am absolutely just falling in love with this series, this whole idea. As I now see the relationship between these three films and things like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, Prince of Darkness, and I mean, there's other influences that abound, right, in relatively new cinema in the last, 20, 25 years or whatever. Of course, this is a Hammer film as well, and this is apparently the trilogy, or the two films, the first two films, is what really begins to put Hammer on the map in terms of Hammer Films productions, which is also interesting. Bryan Johnson does some of the special effects, the miniature work and everything, and he will, of course, go on to Space 1999, and ultimately one of my favorite films of all time, The Empire Strikes Back, as well as Alien. So you got some incredible hands-on here. The cinematographer did the film X the Unknown, shot that. Just looking to see if there's anything else here. The cast is pretty formidable now. British actors I'm not really familiar with, really. But John Longden as Lonix, Sidney James as Jimmy, Brian Forbes as Marge, William Franklyn as Bryan, Vera as Sheila, and is it Broadhead or Broadhead? Anyways, just a formidable cast. Just a remarkable, absolutely remarkable film. Of course, Scream Factory put out 2 and 3. And of course, as you'll see next week, Kino put out the original, the first film, Quatermass Experiment, without the E in front of the X, right? And that, it's funny because Quatermass, I think where I am right now is, for me, it's part 2, part 1, then the third part. But the third part is a little bit of a gap between the first two, but one is like edging right practically on to, and what the difference for me is the end, and is the end, because if I were just comparing the first, say, 3/4 of the film or whatever to one another, I would say the original film perhaps just barely edges out part 2, but the end is what cinches it, man. And so for me, 2, 1, 3, again, Quatermass and the Pit also really influential, all of them, and just the idea that are behind this, just amazing. So if you are really new, you can still get them. I just got all 3. A little bit of a penny, but I think if you're into this genre, into this type of film, and I've sold it. It's just I don't think you would regret it at all. So all month long, I'm just going to be talking about Quatermass, and this is part 2. Just an absolutely phenomenal film from start to finish. It's so packed with so much stuff. It's like, I would imagine if you dealt with the trilogy on a podcast, that would be one freaking long podcast if you really did justice to all 3 films. I don't know how it is you could escape not being a pretty long podcast, but I think a thoroughly really good one, a really good one. And so Quatermass too, and I didn't think to pull it off my shelf and have it in front of me, but Halloween 3 Season of the Witch as a nice suggested companion piece with Quatermass 2 would be a really neat double feature. And so as we near that 20-minute mark, my apologies, but yeah, a little bit of a, yeah. So anyways, Quatermass all month, man. All right. So next week, the original and the Keno edition. And it's going to be a fun month. It's going to be a fun month. All right, as always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to you.